Hi, I'm Jane Peterson with the Human Systems Institute. This is the second in my series of short videos, and hopefully a little provocative and inviting some thoughtful discussion. Because today I'd like to take on the topic of the knowing field. The knowing field really is an insider's term. It's a bit of jargon that was created to explain our experiences, things that seem hard to explain to the Western mind, of how clients' system can be known by representatives and all of that kind of stuff. I'd like to explore this term, how it shapes our relationship to facilitation and our clients. To understand this, we have to start with language. The knowing field isn't a thing in the world like a mountain or a tree. It's a term that was created to explain this phenomena, as like how do representatives know things about client system that they have no obvious way to know. And I think this was Albrecht Marr that came up with this term in a workshop. We basically made up a name for our experience, as we humans do and have done since we could talk. We often name things to control them, to define them, to shape perception, and to shape our relationship with them. I like to say language is the original magic. It's the way that we create the world in our own image. It allows us to cut the unfolding, ever-changing fabric of life into human-sized pieces that are useful to us. As an example, let's take a tree. When I say tree, most people automatically envision a trunk, branches, leaves, maybe some fruit. The parts of a tree that are useful to humans. But as forest researchers demonstrated, a tree is a living community of organisms, from soil, bacteria, and mycelia to animals and pollinators and other trees. Trees affect climates and so on. So our view of tree is based on what's useful to us as humans. It isn't a reflection of the world as it is. So language is like a transformer. In English in particular, we can turn processes, living complex processes, into nouns and static things. Let's take the word thief, for instance. So if somebody is stealing a loaf of bread, right? There's hungry people at home, they steal a loaf of bread. We call them a thief. When that person gets home with a loaf of bread, they might be a hero. And these words are not neutral. They carry judgment, they carry meaning. We create all these roles and relationships and basically create our social worlds with language. Nouns are not just necessarily like mountain or river or tree, they carry judgments. So if we say sinner or saint, the nouns we create freeze this unfolding complexity of life into a static thing. And once we convert an unfolding mysterious process into a thing, we can position ourselves relative to the thing that we made. I hear people say things like they are going to consult the knowing field, or the knowing field showed them something, as if the knowing field was a person, kind of like God on the Sistine Chapel. This places the field out there as something separate from us, something we operate on and interact with like a person. We also can reify and make holy the things that we've made through language. We can make the sacred knowing field. All kinds of things are possible once we've made a term like this. What's interesting to me is when I first encountered the constellation work and when I first encountered birds, he wasn't using the knowing field. He wasn't using any of these terms. He would talk about the mystery or the greater whole. These are still nouns, but they are less likely to be consulted as if they were an oracle or a psychic, because these nouns hint at the vastness and the unknowableness of life. We can all envision a field, but it's a little harder to envision a mystery. It's a little harder to put that into kind of anthropomorphic personal terms. I've been really interested in this idea of a knowing field since I first heard the term. I know of electrical fields and gravitational fields, which are also still mysterious. When I heard the knowing field, I wanted to know, what is it? How does it work? Am I using it properly? Once I know what it is, and I can call it a knowing field, then I can have this relationship with it. I can have a relationship with the thing I made up with language. I don't think this is the most accurate term. In my really deeply trying to understand what is the knowing field, what I keep finding is that life is a unity. You are the field. So is everything and everyone else in it. Life is this unfolding, interconnected, ever-changing process that's in flux. And when we do something like create a term like the knowing field, we actually separate from it. We separate ourselves from it. It's like we separate ourselves. We have humans and nature. We can talk about that as if humans were separate from nature. But you are not separate from this unfolding web of life. The deeper we look, the more we see everything is interconnected. You can take a good look at climate change, for instance, if you want to see how we're connected to everything. The funny thing is, other peoples have known this. It's just really been lost to our modern Western mind. Part of this is our language. English, in particular, is a relentlessly noun-based and actually very judgmental language. It separates and freezes a lot of processes into fixed form. I can talk about freeing my parakeet from its cage, but then I can say my parakeet has freedom, like it's a thing, right? It's an owned thing rather than the experience of flying free. There are indigenous languages, for instance, like Mi'kmaq, where you can go all day without using a noun. You can just simply speak of life in verb, in process and unfolding experience. We are not separate. I think we act that way at our peril because we are life. We made up this lovely thing, this knowing field, and it's a way of knowing and not having to deal with not knowing. And then we treat it as if it's a real object that we can have a relationship to. But I think it might be okay to not know, that we don't necessarily need a knowing field. I've never needed either that phrase or the word energy to explain constellation work sufficiently to get people to participate. We're just participating in the unfolding mystery of life. And we talk about the knowing field as a separate thing. I believe we kind of mislead people into thinking that the only way they can have this experience is through calling up the knowing field as if we brought it into existence. But it's actually here and there's no it. There's only life. So I would invite us to be careful about what we create with our language and how we stand in relationship to our creations. The vast interconnectedness of all life seems to be a mystery only to the Western mind. What if we allowed there to be mystery? What if we resisted the urge to have certainty by creating a thing that holds this experience? And what if we just were comfortable with not knowing? When I met Bert, he didn't do that. It was just a mystery. And so I'd like to invite us to resist the urge to condense the world into human-sized things and allow us to stand in awe of the numinous mystery that is life. So that's my take on it. And I'll be interested to hear what people think of that. What you say about that. If you'd like to engage in more of these kind of conversations, then you might be interested in my courses. This year, instead of a formal training course, I'm offering 4 mini intensives. These are 3-day trainings that are spread over 4 days to make travel easier. And each one is focused on a specific skill area that should improve your facilitation. So you can kind of pick and choose what most suits you, what you feel like you need. These are some of my legacy projects. I'm Mayor's Gray. I've been at it for a long time. I'm looking forward to passing on what I've learned. And the best way to do it is in person. There's lots of people doing beautiful spiritual work. My goals are more prosaic. I just want to provide you with really foundational skills that enable you to be confident and creative in how you apply the constellation work. I've had the blessing of having really top teachers in many different fields, many different areas, things that I've been able to draw from to strengthen constellation work, and I want to pass some of that on to you. The 4 training modules are chair work. Everything starts with the interview. We sit down together, however you do that. Your skill there is going to determine how well the next parts of the process go. It's a really important part that we don't often spend enough time really focusing on what makes good chair work. That one is in March. The second one is floor work. Once you get an idea of what to represent, you're going to do that in some form if you're doing constellation work. And even if you don't work with reps on the floor, once you understand how people actually represent and experience relationship in their bodies, it will make you more effective with mats or with objects or even just conversationally. Having pattern literacy, understanding it's not random what people show you. Once you understand what these are the stories that they're telling, you have a much better sense of how to work with the patterns that people reveal. So that's in May. The third one is in July, and that is innovation. I've really studied constellation work. I wanted to understand it, make sure I was doing it ethically and well as I could do it. I really understand what is it that makes constellation work special. What is the keys that make this a different kind of work? Once you understand that, you have a grasp of those, you can be so creative with this work. You can do so many different things with it in many different contexts, including organizations. So I hope people will be inspired to come and play and explore the limits of constellation work, the edges where we have new possibilities. So that's July, and the final one is in September, and that is working with the body. Some people like to work without words, and if you really understand what the body is telling you and how people express themselves and how they carry family system information in their bodies and how to use that, it will greatly increase the depth and effectiveness of your work. So that's in September. There's these 4. The more you take, the more discounted they are. So if you sign up for 2, each one is less than if you signed up for just 1, and so on all the way to 4. Please check my website for details and applications. Each one has the option of taking an experimental workshop. These are ideas I've been playing with. So do come and join me. The website is www.human-systems-institute.com and look under solutions for trainings. I hope to see you there. Thank you.